Before I even start this video, you've got to come and watch us on our live stream Sunday morning, July 4th, 9 a.m. China time. It's going to be Gweilo 60 and a couple other YouTubers that I've never dealt with in the past, so this could be interesting. Not only that, but it's a prelude on a trip to Chongqing with Chongqing and Chongqing 2.0. Oh yeah, it's gonna be fun. So you come and you watch, and all your questions will be answered. I guarantee it. When you listen to Western media, Biden is good and Vlad is bad. Welcome to another video from Gweilo 60. I'm gonna be talking to you about, is it true or is it just a bunch of bullshit? When you watch the news, Biden is good and Vladimir Putin is bad. Boris Johnson is good and Xi Jinping is bad. Justin Trudeau is good and the Ayatollah, whoever the Ayatollah now in Iran, is bad. Why do you think that is? When you look at what's actually going on around the world, and it filters into your brain, is it really that way, or is it just a bunch of media bullshit? Okay, well, you get, say China, they built a military. They built a really big military in China here. And basically it's for defense. They've got all of their strategic stuff sitting in China here to defend China. The United States has 800 plus military bases around the world. And they say that China is the biggest threat to your democratic way of life because they've built their military. Without that military, they'd be defenseless. You make a decision on that. You get a country like Canada. The politicians are all pointing their finger at China and saying, genocide, genocide, screaming genocide. And then in 2 residential schools, 2 out of, I think there's 136 or 138 residential schools. Don't quote me on those numbers, but I think it's about that. 1,000 children were found in unmarked graves. You're talking genocide? Well, I think the people that are pointing the fingers at China should be pointing the fingers back at themselves and saying, holy smokes, what have we done? When you get the Americans and say President Bush going into Iraq because of weapons of mass destruction, they're gonna get you and we gotta stop them, and we gotta stop them now. It's not about the oil. No, it's not about the oil. It's about the weapons of mass destruction. But then after it's all said and done, there's no weapons of mass destruction. But that's okay. And they're still in Iraq. They've ruined a whole country. But that's okay, because they're a democratic country. They're fighting for democracy. They're doing the right thing for you and me. But if you have the word communism in your country, well, then nothing you do is okay with the democratic people of the rest of the world. And that's the way it is, guys. You cannot be a good person in a communist country. You cannot be a good government if you're a communist government. You cannot be good for your people. But just a second. Build back better? Isn't that just copying what China's doing? Now you have the Federal Reserve talking about digital currency. Well, geez, I wonder where they heard that from. China's been dealing with that for years now, and they're actually rolling out the Chinese yuan digital currency in different venues, like the Olympics coming up and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So as the rhetoric starts to get more and more and more, and the Americans and the Canadians and the British, oh, don't even get me started on the British. You see, the British can occupy places like Hong Kong. They can sell drugs to China, hold them ransom, and take Hong Kong away for 100 years. They can go in and set up an apartheid government in a place like South Africa, and when the white people lose their privilege, like some people you know on YouTube, they get up and they run away to a place like China where you have white privilege. I know. I have experienced white privilege on a regular basis here in China. And it sort of makes me feel weird. I don't see why. I don't understand it. But other people want that white privilege. They thrive on that white privilege. And so, like, but that's okay. Because it's for democracy. It's because the English people know better than the African people of how to run their world. You know what I mean. White people know better than every other person out there in the world. Why? Well, because it's democracy. And people ask me, Gweilo, why do you, stick up for China so much? Why do you stick up for the communist government in China so much? Why do you take the stance that you do? Well, for one thing, my wife comes from communist China, from Nanning, Guangxi Autonomous Region, southern China. And I've lived here for 18 years, and I see what it's actually like here. And the stuff that you're listening to from shithead YouTubers and mainstream media in the West and Western politicians and all of these people that are spouting this rhetoric against China, they're just basically wrong. They have no idea what's going on here. This country is growing in leaps and bounds. The roads are getting better, the infrastructure is getting better, the hospitals on the highways, everything is getting better here. Where when I go back to Canada, it's like going back to the 1970s. And I think that's maybe where the rhetoric is coming from, because it's scaring the living bejesus out of the Western world. That how can a country like China become so powerful? How can they develop the Belt and Road Initiative and bring in all of these other countries into the fold, where the Western world, those good countries that bomb, that kill the Indian and the child, but they didn't just kill the Indian and the child in Canada, they killed the child too. And if, like, these numbers suck, but if there's 130 residential schools, and to date it's been about 500 kids per school on an average, how many kids is that out of the 150,000 that were put in residential schools? Fuck, that comes out to damn near over 60,000 kids. You're talking genocide? You're pointing your finger at China and talking genocide? A bridge in China or a building in China collapses in its poor construction. And it could be, I don't know. But a building in Miami collapses, a condo in Miami, Florida collapses, and it's global warming. Spin it whichever way you need to make yourself look better and the Chinese look worse, or the Russians look worse, or the Iranians, or the people from Iraq, or Venezuela, or Syria, or Lebanon, or you name it. It really doesn't make any difference. You know, even the Mexicans, El Salvadorians, Guatemalans, you name it. The Americans have been there. They've put their footprint on the neck of these countries, and now they're coming in and say, we're going to build back better. And then you look at their cities and the homeless people on the West Coast, and the infrastructure that isn't there, all of these different things, and you think to yourself, do people actually believe this shit? Like, seriously, do people actually believe that? And then you get a country. Well, this is a second tier. It used to be a third tier city. And look in the background, how much stuff is being built. You know, you've got a little, I don't think it's a lake. I think it's more of a reservoir. It's man-made for sure. But it's a beautiful place. The roads, like, look at the frickin' roads, guys. You know what I mean? Like, this place is a happening place here in mainland China. But it's not good, because Xi Jinping is authoritarian. What does that even mean? Vladimir Putin walks around without a shirt on. He's a man's man, you know what I mean? Like, KGB and all of that. Well, I'm sure that, and one of the things that I'd really like to point out in this rant of rants is that as a Canadian growing up in the 60s and 70s, we knew shit was going on in residential schools. We all knew. Nobody said anything. How does that make me feel now? Well, I was a kid at that time, but I don't know. How does that make the older people that were in their 40s and 50s. You don't think that the politicians of today knew what was going on back then? Oh, no, no. I can guarantee you, each and every one of those politicians knew exactly what was going on there. You know, it's okay for the Japanese to dump nuclear waste into the Pacific Ocean from the Fukushima plant. You know that, right? Because it's democratic nuclear waste. You know in Quebec that it's okay to dump raw sewage into the St. Lawrence Seaway. That's okay. Because it's democratic people pooping in the water. But when China, a developing country, has pollution problems that they are dealing with, and I've done a lot of videos on like wind energy, solar energy, different things, different initiatives that they're doing here now in China. But you see, China's bad because, you know what I mean? Like, you got to grab it and say, what am I going to believe coming out of the mouths of news reporters from now on? What am I going to believe coming out of the mouths of politicians, whether it be East or West? Think about what they're saying. Think about their history. Think about what they've done and what they're doing today. Bombing people, taking over countries, changing governments that they have no reason to be there in the first place because it's not their country. You know, different things like that. And then you look at a place like China that hasn't occupied anyone. You look at a place like Russia and China that in the Second World War lost more people to the Germans and the Japanese than everybody else put together. Think about that. They've sacrificed more for democracy, but is it really democracy? They sacrifice more for the people of their country than any other country around the world. And yet, they're ostracized because they will not play the democratic game that the Western politicians want them to play. That's it. It's as simple as that. When you look at the world and you see that, Vlad is bad, Xi is bad, the Ayatollah is bad, Kim is bad, Biden's good, Boris Johnson, Trudeau, oh yeah, they rock. But if you've looked at the history of these countries and, the Bush, the little one, yeah, the dumb one, weapons of mass destruction, no. You see, all of this rhetoric that's been going on in the media lately is just a panic attack by the Americans. Actually, it's a panic attack by all of the democratic countries around the world. And they're not having a good time. They say that China's doing all of these bad things. Yet, Build Back Better. They're just mimicking the Belt and Road Initiative. They're just doing what China's doing. If China was doing something really bad, would they do the same thing? Absolutely not. They figured that they're being left behind. And you know what? They are being left behind. It's not their fault. They just didn't see far enough into the future. They didn't understand what's going on. When you've got a political system that runs for 4 years, changes, 4 years, changes, 3 of those years are actually doing something, and 1 of those years they're dealing with a re-election campaign. So you really can't get your shit together in 3 years, not on a scale of a country the size of the United States or Canada or Great Britain or France or Italy or any country. It just doesn't work that way. Where China has like 5-year plans that go on every 5 years for decades and decades and decades. You get Vladimir Putin that's been in power for a long time. You know what I mean? So when you get a political system that they have, like they have in the West, it's difficult. It's hard. It's an uphill battle, guys. Digital yen. Now the Fed wants to put out a digital dollar in the United States. Why? To compete with China, of course. Can they? Absolutely not. Little bit too little, little bit too late, because China's been dealing with it. They're actually on the edge of actually making this happen in China, which is neat. And it's come through a lot of little stages, from the Alipays and the WeChat Pays, and trying out digital yen and paying people in digital yen, getting stores to accept the digital currencies, and setting it up for the Olympics here, and all of these different things. And now the Fed just say, we're going to do that too. Well, it just doesn't happen overnight, guys. Neither does build back better. When you can't even build your own country, how the hell are you going to build back better? How are you going to entice people in countries and politicians in Africa to have you do their stuff for them, or help them do their stuff, rather than the Chinese that have been there for decades? I don't think it's really going to happen. What makes Vladimir Putin bad? What makes Biden good? You don't think Biden and his government and the past governments of the United States, think of Guantanamo Bay. You've been arrested. You'll never get a trial. You're in jail. You just don't frickin' exist. They bomb places like Iraq because of weapons of mass destruction. But there are no weapons of mass destruction. They occupy Afghanistan. They've done so much damage around the world, and their media still calls them good, and places like China bad. I really don't get it. As a Canadian, I watch the politicians in Canada parrot the rhetoric of what the politicians in the United States say. They basically have to, because 75% of our trade is with the United States. We have a small population, a large landmass, and if we didn't, they could bankrupt us in a heartbeat. Does it make it all right? I don't think so. I think maybe making our economy in Canada reliant on more countries rather than the United States, making inroads with countries like Russia, China, Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, different places where Africa, any country in Africa, because as people actually understand what's going on around the world and learn more, because you can only listen to so much rhetoric, they can only cry wolf for so long before you, me, and everybody else sort of knows what they're up to. And hopefully it won't be too late by that time. And when we actually understand it, and we start making inroads with other countries around the world, and doing business with other countries around the world, making it so our economy isn't based on what they do and what they say, then maybe in the future we can look at places like China in a better light. Our politicians don't have to parrot what the Americans do. Our news companies aren't owned by the American companies like they are now. CBC? Oh, that's a Canadian company that's owned by the Liberal Party that spouts the American rhetoric. I know this. You know this. Everybody knows that. $600 million? You know what I mean? Like, you can pay these guys off. I, as a Canadian, understand that. I see it. And we'll vote their asses out sooner or later. And hopefully they'll never get back in. But you can see where I'm coming from on this video. What makes Vlad bad? What makes C bad? What makes the Ayatollah bad? What makes Biden good? What makes Trudeau good? What makes Boris Johnson good? What makes, you know what I mean? Why is it like this? Is it because they have the media in their back pocket? Is it because that they can basically do whatever they want, say whatever they want to you because you're gullible enough to listen to it and believe it? I know, I've got family members that believe this shit. I've got friends that believe this shit. And I'm not impressed with that, but they don't know any better. Anyway, Think about this, guys. It's one of those things that really gets me, because I see the good in these countries, and I travel around a lot. Anyway, that's another video from Gweilo 60 in beautiful Nanning, Guangxi Autonomous Region, China. If you like this video, as always, like, comment, subscribe, push that share button. Don't forget to resubscribe. Don't forget to hit the bell. And whatever you do, don't forget to put a couple bucks in the children's Patreon account. It's for a good cause. Thanks for watching. Peace out. Bye now.